Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Cassie Riva. I'm the events coordinator at an Unlikely Story bookstore in Plainville, Massachusetts. Before we start, here's a couple of technical tips. Any questions for the authors can be written in the question and answer box at the bottom of your screen. If you'd like to buy Melissa de la Cruz or Graci Kim's books, click the green button at the bottom of your screen and it'll take you to our website. And when you purchase their new books from us, you're going to receive signed book plates for both of them. And when you purchase The Last Fallen Star, Graci Kim's book, she also sent us some really, really cool temporary tattoos to go with the book. I am so excited to introduce best-selling author Melissa de la Cruz and debut author Graci Kim. Melissa de la Cruz is the #1 New York Times and #1 IndieBound best-selling author of many critically acclaimed and award-winning novels for readers of all ages. Many of her more than 50 books have also topped USA Today, Wall Street Journal, and the Los Angeles Times bestseller lists, and have been published in 20 countries. Her book, The Isle of the Lost, the prequel to the Disney Channel original movie Descendants, spent more than 50 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list and has over 1 million copies in print. Melissa is also known for the Blue Blood series and the Witches of East End series. Her other books include the New York Times bestsellers The Queen's Assassin and the Alex and Eliza series, as well as the graphic novels Gotham High and Birthday Girl. Her Hallmark Christmas movies, Christmas in Angel Falls and Pride and Prejudice and Mistletoe, were both the top-rated Christmas movies for their Christmas season on the Hallmark Channel and Hallmark Movies and Mysteries. And 29 Dates, Melissa's YA novel about a Korean exchange student, will soon be a feature-length movie on Disney+. Melissa is also the founder of Melissa de la Cruz Studio at Disney Publishing, which creates and packages books in every genre and age range from a diverse group of new and established writers. Melissa's new book is based off the hit Disney Plus series High School Musical, the series, and it's called The Road Trip. The road trip follows the Wildcats, who, when they learn of a high school musical convention in the next state, they take to the road, but the bumps along the way might just get the better of them. Before becoming an author, Graci Kim was a diplomat for the New Zealand Foreign Service, a cooking show host, and ran a business that turned children's drawings into toys. She's joining us from New Zealand tonight, which is actually, it's tomorrow there. It's tomorrow morning there, which is just crazy. And her middle grade debut novel, The Last Fallen Star, is about a Korean witch in LA, forbidden spells, and one girl's search for belonging. Riordan, author of the best-selling Percy Jackson series, gave The Last Fallen Star a star review and said Graci Kim does such an amazing job of blending Korean mythology into modern world. I am now wondering how I ever lived without knowing all of this cool information. Oh, very, very cool. And for a special treat tonight, the publicity director of Disney Publishing, Seal Ballinger, will be moderating the event. Melissa, Graci, Seal, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. Nice to be here.
Hello. Thank you, Cassie. We appreciate it. And special thanks to all of our pals at An Unlikely Story. For those of you who don't live in Massachusetts or in New England, you should go by there. It's an incredible store. A lot of you know that Jeff Kinney, who wrote the Wimpy Kid books, is one of the owners. And he has a fantastic staff of people there, Kim Havens and a lot of really wonderful people. So we would like to thank everybody there. And we hope we can be doing some in-person events back at the store someday soon. So before we get started, I just want to say it's my unique pleasure to be able to be here with two people that I feel like are friends. One is an old friend, and that's Mel, who she and I have worked together for almost 10 years and have become great buddies in the meantime. And my new buddy, who is Graci Kim, who we've been working together for about maybe a little less than a year, trying to get ready for her debut novel. So let me just give you a little bit of an overview real quick. I'm going to start with Graci. Graci's debut novel, The Last Fallen Star, which is it's a part of a trilogy of books. It's the Gifted Clans books. which is based in Korean mythology about a family of witches living in modern day Los Angeles. So we'll segue to Melissa in a little bit, because there is a witch connection for sure down the line. And the fact that Melissa's coming to us from Los Angeles is great. So we have Graci, who is in Auckland right now. As Cassie said, it's Wednesday there. Graci, give us a little bit of an overview of how you decided to land on writing this book. On what, I've heard you talk before, and you had went through several drafts before you got to the finished version of this book, which is beautifully polished and has received a lot of great critical attention, and people seem to really love it and really embrace this. Can you tell us a little bit about how you ended up with The Last Fallen Star and decided to make this the subject of your first book?
Absolutely. So thank you, first of all, Theo. The first spark that made me start writing this book. So there were a few different ones, but the main spark that got me started was I read a book. I read a book by Zoraida Cordova called Labyrinth Lost, about Latinx witches. We love Zoraida. And I remember I've always loved witches, always, including Mel's witches, of course. I'm a huge fan. And when I read Zoraida's take on Latinx witches, my mind blew. I was like, wait a second. If there can be Latinx witches, could there not be Korean witches? And if so, what would they look like? And if I was to write that story, what would that look like? So it kind of became, I guess, my bullet to start this whole thinking process about what a world of Korean, or a society of secret Korean witches, might look like in today's modern society, inspired by the stories that that my parents and my 할머니, my grandmother, told us when we were little. So that's how it got started. And yeah, I mean, the more I thought about it, I thought, if I could take some of these weird ghost stories and folklores and mythologies from Korean culture, could I blend them with what I love about the Western take of witches? And so I kind of did this fusion dance of a bit of the old, bit of the new, bit of me, bit of existing, bit of research, and melded it all together into this kind of weird story about Korean American witches existing as a subculture within today's LA. I mean, elsewhere as well, actually, but for the first book in LA. So yeah, that's how it got started, just by reading a book and exploring what that might mean for me, inspired by our stories.
So I have a question. This is a book that's a part of the Rick Riordan Presents imprint, which I don't know if most of the people who are attending tonight, I'm assuming some people have a familiarity with who Rick Riordan is. It's an imprint that was founded in 2018 by the New York Times bestselling writer Rick Riordan, who of Percy Jackson fame. It came about as a result of people asking over the years, saying, okay, you've done Greek mythology, you've done Roman mythology, you've done Norse mythology. Why not do other cultures? There's plenty of other cultures for Korean mythology, for example. And Rick's response was always, these are not, of my own cultural background or anything that, having been a teacher, that I feel like I'm fully immersed in and feel qualified to actually speak to. There are other people from these cultures and these backgrounds who, should have an opportunity to address these books, to write books addressing these things, these mythologies and cultures from around the world. So that was really the impetus for Rick to kick off the imprint. I think we now have there will be 10 when we publish Lori Lee's book, Powa and the Soul Stealers. which comes out in September. So there are 10 authors within the imprint. How does it feel to you as a debut author to have been picked to be a part of a program like this? And a program, I will say, that not only, I mean, it's been really embraced both critically as well as by the fans and consumers, as far as fiscally as well, that it's been super successful. How does that feel coming into something like that, and to be the new kid on the block in something like this?
Honestly, I've been asked this question several times, and every time I just have the same response, which is that I have no words. I'm a baby writer. You know, this is my first novel. This is my first baby, apart from my human baby. And to be able to be taken under the wing of the storyteller to the gods himself, I mean, Uncle Rick, I've said this many times before, but I don't think he's quite human. So to be able to work under him is just, there are no words to show how incredible that is and how grateful I am for the opportunity. But I also just feel a huge amount of responsibility and duty, I think, is my biggest thing, because I've been given this incredible platform, and I feel like I need to do this opportunity justice. And I don't know if this is very much my Korean upbringing talking, I don't know, but I feel this immense sense of weight on my shoulders to do not only other Korean diaspora communities justice, even though it's a fantastical novel. I've drawn so much from the Korean diaspora experience that I hope I can do that part of it justice. But to all readers, especially of Rick Riordan and Rick Riordan Presents books, but readers of all ages and of all fantasy. And I just feel a lot of pressure still. I feel a lot of pressure to do it right. But the awesome thing is I feel so loved and welcomed by everybody at Disney, incredibly so, but also from all the rest of the Rick Riordan Presents authors. That has been such an unexpected but such a welcomed and appreciated part of this journey. I've had some of the authors, just message and say, hey, look, I know it's it's a lot of pressure. If you just want to talk, here's my number. Doesn't matter what time of day it is. I know we have big time differences, but just call, or other authors from the imprint messaging and reminding me to just take a break, and just go have some alone time, go sit at the beach, just breathe.
Yeah.
And it has been just such a lovely little community. I would say a family, definitely a family. So yeah, it's mixed, definitely mixed. I feel an immense sense of duty and responsibility, but also I feel overwhelmed with love and pride, and I'm just so grateful. That's how I feel.
That's awesome. You and I had emailed back and forth after an event that you did last week when the book first came out. And in your response, you were talking about just some of what you touched on just now, and sort of having that opportunity, and it really is about being able to help new authors and help those sort of visions and dreams of what they want to be, to help bring that to fruition. And I'm so glad to hear that it's been everything you hoped it would be and more. So far, you're just at the beginning. I do want to say that the Rick Riordan Presents authors are definitely a unique group of people. It's a special group of people. It's kind of like a club. And whenever we do events, Gracie, you actually participated in an event when we published Rick's The Tower of Nero last fall, where we had a number of people participate. And that was probably your first sort of opportunity to engage with some of those people. But we do have a really special book that I want to plug. It's an anthology of the Rick Riordan Presents authors that comes out on September the 28th. It's called The Cursed Carnival. It is Rick and the 9 authors that are in print as of right now. Graci is included in this. She has a story in here, so it's something to look forward to. It's really great. So Mel, I want to transition to you. So, and Graci, you may not be aware of this, but we launched a similar program with Melissa last summer. It's called the Melissa De La Cruz Studio, and it is somewhat in the same vein as Riordan Presents. It's an incubator for particular voices and styles. But Mel, do you want to tell us a little bit about that and what your vision is for that? And also the timeline, when we have several books now under contract. And what's your vision for that, for the Melissa De La Cruz Studio?
Yeah, so I had a content company. I had a little part of my business where we would work with debut writers, and it came from, even with Rick saying, there are people who can tell these stories better than me. I was interested in several other topics and several other kind of stories, but maybe I wasn't the best person to tell that story. So I would come up with an idea, and then we would look for a writer to kind of execute the idea. And we did pretty well, but it was just me and my husband. So I think we probably published about maybe 2 books a year. It wasn't a huge, endeavor, but it was something that I felt kind of strongly about. And I really liked working with writers. I edited a bunch of anthologies and even working with my book festival, just meeting new young writers. It's fun. And we were talking to a bunch of companies actually about, kind of ramping up this part of what I do. And Disney seemed like the perfect home for it. And, they were really, really excited. And, as we've kind of developed it together, it's kind of, what is the Melissa De La Cruz brand? And it is about, I think my vision is to have commercial fiction for people of every background, to see yourself as, the kid in Sweet Valley High, not just the blonde twins, but anybody, can be the cool kids in Sweet Valley High. So, so kind of bringing those stories. So they are very commercial, but it's also very diverse. We're working with debut authors and established authors, and it's a whole range from picture books to adult novels. With the hope that they become, the new Disney IP, the new intellectual property that Disney owns, which is kind of amazing and kind of blows my mind when I think about it, because they said, well, give us, what you got, what do you want to do? And it's, I can only write, several books a year, and I already write many books a year, but I can't write more than that, so it's an opportunity to tell all the stories I want to tell and find the best people to tell them.
Awesome. Well, lucky for us, for sure. So Mel, you have a long history with Disney that goes all the way back to Blue Bloods. Was Blue Bloods was the first book you published with Disney, right?
Yes,
the very
it was.
first
Yeah.
one? Okay. And for those of you who don't know, Blue Bloods is about vampires. So it's an incredible series that there were how many in the original series?
7 original novels, and then 2 companion books, 1 encyclopedia, 1 graphic novel, and then all the spin-offs. So we actually counted 19 in all.
Wow.
In that world.
Wow.
Yeah, which is funny because my original editor who acquired the book said, I said, I think I want to do 3. And she's like, 3, let's do 19. And like, it's not out of the air. And I was like, oh my God, Helen, we actually did make it to 19.
That's hilarious.
Wow.
That's hilarious. And Mel, you told me we're preparing for an event that Melissa's going to be doing with us. It's with Disney through our corporate citizenship team. It's about storytelling, and Mel's going to be doing a live interview later this week. It's called Next Generation Storytelling. She's going to be introduced by Frankie Rodriguez, or in conversation with Frankie Rodriguez, who plays Carlos on High School Musical, the series, which segues into the fact that your most recent book is The Road Trip, which is, tell us a little bit about that. So this is a bridge, High School Musical, the series, for those of you who don't know it, finished season 1 on Disney Plus. They will be kicking off season 2 this Friday, the 14th.
This Friday.
And so it's all such synchronicity that it all works together here. But Mel, tell us a little bit about the book. I think the book does act as a bridge going into season 2. And it actually starts in Carlos's voice, which I think is ironic because when we were doing some of the taped footage that'll run with the piece on Friday and will ultimately be housed in a website for teachers and for students around the country, we were talking about the fact that Frankie, who plays Carlos, is in there. He actually read the beginning section of the book, which is told from Carlos's point of view. So Mel, tell us a little bit. A lot of your fans that are out there know certainly you wrote all of the Isle of the Lost books, which were the novels that joined all of the Descendants movies together. The original Isle of the Lost novel came out before the first movie. And then we talked about this before in another event, but they actually worked as bridges in between the movies leading up to where they were. So those were hugely successful for you. And I know you've talked about before how much fun you had going into those, being a fan of fairy tales and sort of the antithesis of those books. But you've come full circle with, you've written, I think we figured out that this was your 68th book, which was the other day, which is pretty incredible. So Mel, tell us a little bit about this book and what the fans can expect. There may be some people that are in attendance that have already read it and are looking forward to the premiere of season 2 on Friday night, but tell us a little about it.
Yeah, I'm glad you told me it was next Friday. I've been telling people it's this Friday. It's not this Friday.
No, it is this Friday, the 14th.
Oh, it is this Friday. Oh, I got it.
Next Friday. Okay. It is this Friday.
Oh, okay, good. Because my daughter is very excited. So the book is a bridge novel. It was after I had worked on Descendants. We were talking to the channel, and they asked me if I would be interested in writing a similar kind of type book for a High School Musical. And I said, "What? Send me what you guys have. Let me see it." I'm not as familiar with it as I was with the whole Disney canon, but certainly my kid was a fan, and I watched those movies. But what really kind of brought me to the project was the new series. I thought that it was so funny and so modern and witty, and I just loved how Tim Federle, who's the showrunner, just kind of revamped, this franchise.
And an author.
And an author also, in such a whole new way. So I said, yeah, no, I'm interested in it. And we had talked about what we should do. Should we do another prequel book? But the season starts off so well. I was like, I don't think we would really add anything by going into the summer. I mean, that might change at one point. They'll ask me to do a prequel, but but it was such a, kind of perfect introduction. So then we were like, okay, well, then let's do a bridge. And what is the bridge? Should it be a Christmas novel? That was the original idea, was I was going to write a Christmas novel. And then we thought that was too limiting. And then I said, well, what if they just go on a road trip, to a High School Musical convention? So we thought that was really funny because it was, kind of played into the meta aspect of the series. So it picks up
very meta. Of course, the whole idea, High School Musical, the series, is all very meta to begin with. So
yes, so it's like
the High School Musical, the series, the convention, the book.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so funny. I mean, just everything from the title itself, you get, kind of like that humor. So they go on a road trip to the convention. One of them ends up at the wrong convention, which I find so funny. And because he kind of ends up going to meditative mindfulness convention. And then the bus breaks down because, you know, every bus always breaks down on a field trip. You know, you always get the kids at the side of the road. So they kind of have to sing for their supper. And we're able to do a little bit more development in some of the storylines from season 1, and then also set up season 2. So kind of introduce some of the new characters.
Fun. I will say both books are a lot of fun. So, Mel, you mentioned, I mean, you wear a lot of hats, not just author, but now publisher, and you also are instrumental in 2 really important YA and middle grade readers convention festivals. One is Y'all Fest, which takes place in November in Charleston, South Carolina, which was sort of the original convention, and then the West Coast version that came a few years later, which is called Y'all West. I will say that Gracie was fortunate to be a part of Y'all West this year and had a really great time doing that. Gracie, did you get a feel? Unfortunately, I will say, I'm sorry it was virtual because this and they do an incredible job of recreating that, but the in-person aspect of those festivals, if you're a reader, are really just incredible. But Gracie, you got to be a part of it this year, and got to see it. It's a really incredible thing that Mel and her friends have all put together.
Thank you.
Anyway, yeah. So I just wanted to touch on a couple of things. There's a lot of crossover. There's witches between your storylines. Mel, you wrote the Witches of East End books, which also went on to become a Lifetime TV series. What do you think about, and we talked about vampires too, what do you think about people's fascination with the supernatural? And what do you think? Some people will say, Mel and I were talking about this in a different event, and she was talking about that she's going back and going to be publishing a new Blue Bloods book coming up next year, which is going to be really great. And we were saying vampires never left. You know, people talk about trends and that sort of stuff. Vampires never left. Well, I don't think witches ever left either. Being a big fan of both, and being an old-time Anne Rice fan here too, I love the crossover of witches and vampires and all the great things. That there's just so much richness there. What do you think keeps readers engaged and fascinated with the supernatural? Gracie, what do you think is the pull?
I mean, for me personally, it's this idea that something that can only be intangible and fantastical can exist in our world. You know, you can read high fantasy or things set in completely different worlds, and you can get lost in them and love them, but there's something special about the canon around vampires and witches because they're such a part of our society. You know, they're not a completely different world. They're in our world, and they're just these subcultures and sub-societies that exist. And I think what I find so fascinating about it is that it doesn't seem that foreign. You know, it seems like I could maybe just not have known that I was secretly a vampire. I don't know. I might have just forgotten, or maybe a spell was put on me so as to just conveniently forget that I'm actually from a long line of witches. I don't know. It's that possibility, I think, of it being real that gets me so excited. You know, that maybe it could be all around us as we speak right now.
Cool. And Mel, what do you think?
You know, when I was writing Blue Bloods, my editor added in the bio, you know, Melissa is not a blue blood vampire, but she knows people who are. And, you know, it was kind of this cheeky, you know, little line, but I got so many emails from kids, you know, saying, oh my God, you know, vampires. Oh my God. I think I'm a vampire, you know, and, you know, half of them, I think, you know, were just kind of playing off, you know, the humor of the line, but half of them, you know, I think at that age when you're reading books, and I certainly was that age when I was reading, you know, Salem's Lot and Anne Rice, you know, maybe there's, magic out there. I mean,
Exactly.
I mean, you can't say I like you, Gracie, I grew up, steeped in kind of Filipino superstition and mythology, and there was just a lot more respect for the supernatural. Like, people didn't laugh about it. Like, it was like,
yes, it was serious business.
Yeah, like, you don't want bad luck, don't do this, yeah, no, so, so I did grow up with this kind of Western skepticism of that. I kind of grew up with maybe an Eastern kind of acceptance that there's things that we don't, really understand in this world. And I know now with TikTok, I mean, there's a trend of like the witches of TikTok, which my 14-year-old is very, she said, "Oh, I'm a witch."
Okay, this is new to me. I'm writing it down.
I was going to say, I need to check that out. So.
Check out the TikTok witches, they take a lot of credit for the good stuff that's happened.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's totally fun. So, Gracie, you're The Last Fallen Star is the first book in a trilogy. How far along are you with the next book? Are you in the middle of doing second round edits on the second book? Is that right?
Thanks for reminding me, Theo. But yes, no. So yes, I've got the big edits due by late May, by the end of this month. So it's actually on my to-do list for right after we finish this chat, is to start working on that.
Well, at least it's morning where you are instead of
exactly.
Of course, I don't know. It's funny when Mel was talking about her editor saying, "Well, she's not a blue blood," but I have known that for those of us who keep erratic sleep patterns throughout the night and email and social media correspondence, that there would have been a point where I could have said, well, maybe Mel is a vampire or a witch. I don't know, for keeping up all those things. So do you know what's going to happen, Gracie? Do you know what's going to happen in the third book yet? Do you have that plotted out, or is that you're going to let this story, speak to you as to what it's supposed to be?
I know how it's going to start and I know how it's going to end, but I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen in the middle.
There you go.
I probably shouldn't admit that, but yes, no, not that clear. But I think one of the fun parts of writing, I'm discovering as a very new writer, is how there is almost this magical part of the writing process. And Mel, I'd be curious to know, as such a prolific and a writer of so many books, whether this changes later on. But I love to plan, so I plan everything and I plot everything out, because without that guiding map, I find I just sit there and just melt into a puddle of anxiety. But even then, when I'm writing, things happen and characters say stuff or do things, or characters just appear. And it fascinates me because I know it's my brain. Like, I know it's my brain writing the words, but sometimes things come out that I hadn't planned or that I hadn't imagined, and it just works. And it almost makes me think, my mum, going back to superstitious upbringing, my mum used to always say that our ancestors are all around us, and that there are some ancestors that may be with us more often than not and can guide us. They're almost like a spiritual guide that are with us when we need them, but also just for support, and I wonder sometimes if some of my ancestors were wannabe writers that are trying to inject their ideas into my brain as I write, because some of the characters or some of the twists, or I don't know, things that happen. I think the logical scientific explanation would be that as writers, we absorb ideas and creativity from all sources, right? And we store them away from movies, from people, from lived experiences, or from whatever, and that things just pop up, things that we'd forgotten about just pop up when they fit. But I kind of prefer to think that there's bigger forces out there maybe just helping me along. I'm kind of imagining I'm at my laptop typing away, and there's like these two hope this is not too creepy, but like, you know, spiritual people, ancestors perhaps behind me whispering in my ear, being like, no, that character would not say that, Gracie, come on. This is what the character would actually do. Oh, maybe you should create a character under my name. Yes, type out the letters L O. I don't know. It's nice to think that I might not be alone in what can be sometimes quite a solitary pursuit.
Yeah, cool. So I just realized we've got some questions here. You guys, if you have questions you want us to ask Gracie and Melissa, please put them in the Q&A box. The chat has a lot of stuff going on, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to pull out any questions from there. So if you've got a question you want to ask of these guys, put it in the question and answer box, and we'll try to get to that. So I'm going to go to this first one. Mel, this is for you. Excuse me. The question is, which East High student do you think would fit in best on the Isle of the Lost? And then the second part of the question is, which VK, which is Villain's kids, from Descendants would fit in best at East High? This is from Callista.
Hi, Callista. That's such a good question. You know, that's so interesting. My answer, and I saw it in the box earlier, so I've been thinking about it a lot. And you know, I actually think that EJ would really fit in Riordan. And because, you know, he's such like a hero, you know, kind of personality, and you know, he's like, you know, always kind of like has this big protective kind of princely air. But of the villain, and then I think Carlos would also enjoy it, you know, because he's you know, just got a lot of spirit and a lot of energy, you know, and maybe a tiny little bit wickedness that he could kind of fit in with the villain kids there. And I think of the villain kids going to East High, I really see Evie as somebody who would really enjoy it, you know, because she likes to sing and dance, and you know, and again, just has that enthusiastic kind of creativity. I think she would really get along with Miss Jen.
I'm channeling Rotten to the Core.
Right?
Being sung by the High School Musical, the series.
Oh, I mean, that would be perfect, right?
So Mel did.
I think we should do that mashup. I mean, we would all tune in. That would be so cool.
Well, we'll get you back on Disney Hits on Sirius XM radio, and let that happen. Mel was on there the other day to promote the book, and got to talk about her favorite songs, and I know her favorite Disney songs, and I know that was one of them, was Rotten to the Core from the first Descendants movie. So
hey Mel, so you do have these incredible worlds, right? And they're like whole existing universes that are separate to each other. Do you ever put Easter eggs for each other in your books? Like, is that something people can? Oh, you do? That's so cool.
I do. I think I have. You know, I think some of the witches are in some of the Blue Bloods. You know, I think Oliver kind of hooks up with one of the witches. I kind of remember that a little bit. And yeah, and even when I was writing a few contemporary books, and I know I put a character in something in between who was in another contemporary book of mine. Yeah, so I do have fun kind of doing that. Because Stephen King used to do that with his books. I'd be like, oh, that's from, you know, that novel, and now he's here. So I do enjoy that. Yep.
Cool.
I should do that more, Gracie.
Cool.
I forgot.
So much fun.
All right, Gracie, I've got a question for you. This is from Ben, and he says, who have been the most inspirational people in your life, and how many of them influenced some of the characters you created in this book?
Oh, thanks, Ben. That's an awesome question. I feel like that's a threefold answer for me. So first, my sisters. I have two younger sisters who I love. They're big personalities, and we're all completely different, but I adore them, and my love for them, our sisterhood, is what inspired the relationship between Riley and Hattie in the book. So them. Then my parents. I find with every event I do, I'm always going on and on about how much I love my family and my parents, but my parents are my biggest heroes, and their love, and their life lessons, and their sacrifice, and their service. I mean, that's inspired so much of this book and this world. And the Corm Witches, the healing clan, their clan motto is service and sacrifice. And it's something that I was inspired by my parents, so them. But speaking of Easter eggs and specific characters that may have been affected or inspired in the book by real life people, so I have this one chapter in the book. I don't, maybe it's chapter 22, it's a little later in the book, where a lot of the characters are cameos from some of my writing friends' books. So I have a really great tight-knit writing group called Kimchingos, kimchi being the fermented cabbage Korean dish, and tingu means friend in Korean. So we've created this little hashtag for ourselves, Kimchingos. And we all met each other before we were even agented, let alone published. And now the last one of us has just gotten a book deal. So all of us have gone through this journey together to finding agents and finding editors. And so by the end of next year, I think all of us will have a book in the world. And in fact, this morning, I just saw a post with 3 of our books side by side on a display table in a bookstore, and we were just all in tears over it. But yes, there is this one chapter where a lot of the characters and a lot of the things that they say are Easter eggs and direct cameos or lines drawn from their books. So that's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Cool. All right, Mel, I've got one for you. I know the answer to this question, but I want you to let our listeners hear. So Lindsay Young has a question. She said, how did you get involved in writing for Disney?
So I was a writer with Simon Schuster. They published my first novel, and my editor moved over to Hyperion, to Disney. So Brenda Bowen, who had bought the Au Pairs, was over at Disney, and Emily Meehan was her assistant editor, and Emily became my editor for many years. So Emily said, what are you, we'd like for you to work with us, but it has to be something different from what you're publishing with SNS. And I was doing the Beach Lane books, the Au Pair books there, which are very fun summer reads. And I said, well, what if we did something a little darker? What if we did vampires? And they loved that idea. And they thought it was different enough from what I was doing with my other publishing house. And we started there. We started with Blue Bloods. And, I had this idea. I said, what if, all of the rich and powerful people are rich and powerful in America because they came over on the Mayflower and they were vampires. So it just was this kind of eureka.
So cool.
I have a personal question that just popped up in my mind, and I've known you a long time, and we've never really had this discussion, but you went from specific YA content to with the Isle of the Lost. It was definitely in a very different direction and a younger age group. That was your first time of doing middle grade, wasn't it?
I had done middle grade contemporary, so I did a series called The Ashleys.
That's right. That's right. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but it was a different direction, certainly.
Yeah, and it was like more fantasy. It was interesting because Descendants was a lot more like the books that I loved reading at that age. With the fantasy and magic and adventures and quests. So I was really excited, and plus the whole Disney universe that I was really, really familiar with because I'm such a big Disney kid. So yeah, it's interesting. I was like, wow, that's so crazy. I'm a Disney storyteller. That's all I ever wanted to be. It actually happened. It's weird.
Isn't it unbelievable?
Right?
Unbelievable. Yeah. Yeah. One of my biggest memories. Sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Go, Gracie.
This isn't a book-related story, but just Disney in general and how much it has formed so many people's childhoods. I remember my first ever movie I ever watched in cinema was The Lion King, and I remember being so the whole experience of just sitting in this huge theater was such a new thing. I can't even remember how old I was. I was very young, and I remember crying, like sobbing out loud in the cinema, and thinking, what are these emotions, and why is this big room with the big screen making me so emotional? But yes, Disney. What a ride.
The magic of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Indeed. And here we are. We're all a part of the Disney family. How lucky
Yeah.
for us.
Incredible.
So I do have one last question I want to get to. This is from Shauna, and I'm going to put this to both of you. Shauna is a writer, and she says, Gracie, I'm like you in that I know how I want my book to begin and end, but I have no idea what to put in the middle. Do you have any tips for getting through the middle? And I'm gonna ask you both to answer this. Gracie, why don't you go first?
Hi, Shauna. That's a really good question. And I wish I had a very good, enlightening response for you, except that the murky middle is by far the hardest part for me too. I find, because you know where you're headed, right? You know where the light is at the end of the tunnel, and you just have to get there. But it's like climbing a mountain or going upstairs. I hate climbing mountains and going upstairs. It's just so painful in the process. I find that this is probably not great advice, but to just do it. And I think that is probably easier said than done, but I find I waste so much energy complaining about how painful the middle is and wasting all my energy telling everybody how painful it is and telling my brain how much I'm not enjoying it. That if I had just redirected that energy into just gritting my teeth, sitting down and writing it without any expectation of it needing to be good, I think that's the key. Just say, I can fix this later. It doesn't matter, but I just need to get the bare bones out. So sit there, and I kind of hear my mum's voice, my mum's like big, loud, booming voice in my ear. Just sit there and do the work. So I do that. And honestly, I always find, I mean, I'm pretty new to this, but I always find looking back on that, on the middle part, that it's not actually as bad as I thought it was while I was writing. You still obviously have to do a lot of revision, but I think, yeah, just sitting there and doing the work.
Good advice. Mel, what about you? Now, we've heard from Gracie, who's got one book under her belt. You have 68 books under your belt. What's your advice?
You know, it never gets any easier, I'm sorry to say.
No.
You know, every book is its own puzzle and its own challenge. I do find you know, what I've learned to do is trust the process so I don't get too frustrated and too discouraged. You know, I mean, some days are just not going to be good days. But, you know, as long as you keep pushing that, you know, rock up the hill, like I just feel like I'm tapping the balloon. Just keep tapping the balloon, you know, keep it going. You know, I don't, you know, when I was younger, I think I thought, oh, I would solve everything in one night, or you know, it'll just be all so easy. Just, you know, if I can get everything. And now I don't force it as much. Like now I just realize you have to go through the process. You have to make mistakes. You have to like circle back and just keep rewriting. I do find the middle is really hard. So what I do is I write as much of the beginning as I can, you know, just kind of start breaking down into scenes and chapters. And then I write as much of the ending as I can, like what's building up to that. So it kind of meets in the middle. And I'm like, well, there's my middle, you know.
So you write out of order, Mel.
Yeah. So I write,
oh, wow.
I outline. So I write an outline and I start building from the beginning and I build from the back end also. And then, you know, I think it's good to know, you know, it's craft books are not, you know, terrible to read. I think it's, I mean, when I first published a book, my sister gave me a book that was like how to write a novel. And I, you know, at first I was kind of insulted, like, what do you mean? It was, it was actually really helpful. You know, it's really helpful to learn structure. I think screenwriting structure.
Stephen King's On Writing is a great book for anybody. If you're interested, if you're writing, if you're, you know, check that out for sure.
Yeah. No, Stephen King is good. More about the voice, but I think that a lot of young people who are starting out don't understand structure. And I think that's something that is helpful to read in a craft class.
Well, a lot of people think, oh, I can write a book, and think it's a lark. Think it's like, oh, it's so easy. And
yeah,
they particularly everybody thinks, oh, a picture book. How hard could it be? Well, I'm
oh
like,
my God, picture books are the
hardest.
Yeah, let me tell you. You got what 72 words and so many images, and you got to convey all this emotion and tell a complete story. It's super hard. It's super hard. Well, ladies, before we go, I want to give a plug to all the attendees. You can get copies of these books. There's actually a green button on the screen just below Melissa in the center of the screen. It says click to buy the books. You can. We just want to thank everybody again at An Unlikely Story. Incredible group, Cassie and Kim and Jeff and everybody there. Be sure to get your books, and thank you for this opportunity. Gracie, Melissa, I love being with you guys. This was such fun. And Cassie, thank you so much for making this happen.
Thank you all. This was so great. Click the green button. Gracie's book comes with temporary tattoos that are really, really cool, and I'm going to go put a bunch on me right now. Melissa and Gracie's books both come with signed book plates. So be sure to hop on that. Click that green button. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Seal, for moderating.
Yeah, of course. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.